I'm from Austin, Texas. Born and raised, I've lived there my whole life.
I'm from Chucotown, they call it, El Paso, Texas.
Very humid, a lot of people, very diverse, definitely concrete jungle type of vibes.
And the culture is a lot different from a lot of places in America. I like to call it the closest you can get to Mexico while still being in America. Everybody's like Mexican there, and then, yeah, the culture's just influenced by it.
My parents were separated my whole life, pretty much. They were together until I was about like 2 years old, but I don't have any memory of that.
My home life was pretty interesting to say the least. My father was like a gang member back in El Paso, and him and my mom were like really into drugs. So that really affected a lot of things in my life. My house used to smell like skunk a lot. And you know, like I grew up to find out that was weed, you know what I mean? There used to be a lot of these like little like waxy like balls all over like his room. I later like grew up to learn that was like heroin. The only times I would ever really see my dad is when we were like visit jail, because he was in prison for like most of my life.
My parents both wanted custody over me. They fought for custody until I was, I think, 17, because at that point it didn't really matter. I was a lot different than a lot of other kids. You know, I pretty much lived out of a backpack every weekend, just because I'd have to move stuff from one house to another, because it was court mandated, so I would have to, like, there wasn't an option. My parents like refused to like work with each other about that. But even when I go back home now, because I'm an adult, like I still have to pick who do I go see first, because if I go see one parent first, the other parent's gonna complain, like, why did you go see them first? Like, I'm here too, or why don't you ever stay with me, you know?
I don't have any connection with my mom at the moment, just because I don't think I would gain nothing in my life from like that relationship at this point, you know what I mean? Like what can really they offer me, you know? Like I needed that like maternal bond when I was like a kid, not now when I'm like older.
So I definitely think it still has an effect on me, but I would say less so because my parents have less power over me. You know, as a kid, like they provide everything for you, you know, like your food, your water, your shelter and all that. Right now I pay for everything on my own, and I would say like this whole situation has made me an independent person, and I think I like that about it, but it does kind of suck because there's a lot of trauma that goes with that.
First few times it was for just stealing drugs, but like possession of drugs, and then eventually it escalated with his gang life, aggravated assaults, theft, burglary, terroristic threats, whatever that means. My mom also picked up some charges when I was a kid, like endangering children, like stuff like that. Like she would have to leave us alone and like go to work or something. So at some point I was like in the possession of like the state. So for me, that was like very difficult. But yeah, after that we started like living with my grandparents.
So that wasn't very fun, and I got to celebrate 2 of every holiday, which I know a lot of people really like they think that's super cool, but for me it was more of like I wanted to be normal, and it kind of sucked because it was like, well, if I'm celebrating 2, that means I'm missing 1 with either family. So I missed out on like my parents' birthdays, my siblings' birthdays. I never had a normal relationship with my siblings, not just because of like our age gap, but because I couldn't be there for them like most siblings were. I didn't see them often, so that kind of sucked.
For me, holidays always meant like going to prison and like just going to see my dad. And in a sense, like it kind of like breaks your childhood a little, because you know you have to start walking through like metal detectors. You have to start getting like frisked. I guess I never really knew how it affected me until like kids started like teasing me about it.
People used to pick on me a lot for like, I used to carry a really huge backpack, especially in high school because we didn't have lockers. I would carry everything with me, so people would see this like tiny little girl with a huge backpack on her shoulders and they were like, what the heck is wrong with you? But I had to live out of my backpack a lot because I would go back and forth.
So that's when I started having problems like in like elementary school with like a lot of fighting and stuff. Because you know, like words kind of hurt when you're a kid, and like for somebody else to like tell you something, like it just doesn't come off like the right way, you know what I mean? And I grew up seeing a lot of violence, so for me like the natural thing was just like go fight people.
I think people grow up like whose parents are together, it's easier for them to like find love and communicate with their partner, but for me I don't have that because I wasn't shown that as a kid.
Your parents never told you they love you?
Occasionally, sorry.
You're fine.
They did, but I never knew that it was real.
Do you feel like it's real now?
Sometimes, yeah. I think it's really different because my parents used to fight about Like, who wants me? So for me, I never felt like a person. Like, they were telling me I love you because they love me. They were telling me I love you because they wanted me to believe that they loved me. But I think all the arguing, the fighting just made me understand that maybe they don't. You know, maybe I'm more of a burden than I should be. But I know that it's not my fault, and I've never blamed myself for it, but I do definitely think it hurts.
So he went, after the first time he got out, he did end up going like back in, like a couple more years. He ended up getting back out like when I was like a sophomore in college. And I'm now a senior. But recently he like did go back in, like last August. He was like 1 month away from being like 4 years out. And you know, this is pretty much for like the same thing as always.
They feel like they failed me in a way that they both grew up the same way. They both had separated parents, so for them, they were like, I know what you're going through, and I'm sorry about it, but this is the way it is. So I know that they feel guilty about it, but I know that now there's nothing they can do about it. You know, I'm an adult now.
I feel like I had a lot of bad examples in my life to let me know like what shouldn't be done, you know what I mean? And I don't know, I feel like that's a weird thing to say, but like, you know, there's a lot to learn, even like the worst people. You know, you can learn like what not to do, and that in itself can be like a really powerful thing. So I feel like as long as if I know what not to do, it gives me a better idea of like things like what to do.
If you experience something, I don't understand why you would want somebody else to go through that, especially when it hurt you. But I also know that you can't make somebody love you if they don't love you.
I feel like everybody should strive to be like better than their parents.
I want to be there for my children. My children will come first, you know, their feelings, everything. I want them to understand that, like, even though me and my partner might not be together, that we still love them and we'll try to work things out for them so that they don't have to miss out on birthdays or events or, you know, carry a bunch of crap with them to school or anything like that. So, yeah, I'll definitely try and work things out and hopefully break the cycle, but hopefully I won't need to because the cycle will just stop. I think that, you know, what happened has happened and it's made me who I am.